In the following video, I'm talking about the habit of gender identitarians and the TRAs and the GI movement for transing people that are dead, figures in history, you know, and claiming them for their own. So I refer to a few cases in point that are close to my heart. Anyways, hello and welcome to all new subscribers. Hope you have a good day, and here's the video. Transing dead people. So let's just break that down, eh? Alright. So this is a group of people who are absolutely fanatical, passionate about not misgendering people. They get well riled up, like, call me ma'am, if you misgender them, right? You never ever meant to assume their gender based on, you know, their biological sex. And yet, somehow, it's okay to assume the gender identity of people who have been dead for fucking millennia. So, you're not allowed to, like, assume their gender now, but it is okay to assume someone's gender if, assume the gender identity of historical figures. Unless you got access to, like, the Back to the Future fucking time machine, DeLorean fucking car, or unless you are or you know a really, really good clairvoyant or medium, how the fuck are you gonna know someone's gender identity if they've been fucking, if they're a figure in history? You don't. You can't. Not even John Edwards would be able to pick that shit, man. What really shits me is this transing of fucking historical figures, because A, yeah, it's hypocritical, B, these fucking idiots, like, as per usual, right, they're not interested in being aware of the fact that you need to take things into fucking account based on the cultural or historical context of the times. No, they're not doing that, because I don't know, maybe that would require some kind of fucking, I don't know, what the fuck is going on with fucking education system for a whole generation of people to be reaching fucking semi-adulthood without any idea of history. I mean, I know I studied at uni, like, it's kind of a passion of mine that's been passed down from my mum and my granddad, you know, but at the same time, and it's not, you know, it doesn't float everyone's boat, and that's fair enough, but at the same time, fuck, man, it's fairly fucking important, fundamental and necessary fucking area of study that, or area for people and fucking kids to be educated in. You're not fucking, if these kids aren't being taught history, if they're not being taught critical analysis, if they're not being taught how to fucking look back and evaluate things based on the cultural context and take all of the other contributing factors into account when they're forming their picture or their image or their conclusions on historical era, time or figure, then how are we going to learn from fucking, then history will keep repeating, won't it? I mean, right now, case in point, we've got the fucking witch trials coming back. You know, like, this TERF is the new witch, it really is. But anyway, I digress. The transing of Kurt Cobain. Okay. He wore pigtails. He wore makeup. He wore lipstick and eyeliner sometimes. He fucking went on stage in a skirt. He was not a fucking trans woman. As a Gen Xer, I would like to say, fuck you, and no, you're wrong. Kurt Cobain was a man. At no point did he say he wasn't a man. At no point did he identify as a woman. He knew he was a fucking man. He wore the dress and the skirts and all that sort of shit, but because he basically is a way of challenging the fucking gender norms. And also because he was that secure in himself and in who he was as a person and as a man that he did not feel threatened by that shit. Anyways, so that's Kurt done. Joan of Arc, another one that, excuse my language, and anyone that's a new subscriber, yes, there is a constant bad language in this channel. But Joan of Arc, right? Joan of Arc was not a fucking man. She was not a trans man. She wore men's clothing, right? Because in that time, at that point in history, to wear women's clothing would have marked her as a fucking moving target, right? She wore those clothes that shit as protection, but it wasn't because she thought she was a man. She was a woman. She just didn't want to get fucking raped on a battlefield. God. Margaret James Barry. Doctor. Served, went through fucking medical school, became a surgeon, became a well-known, renowned surgeon. Once I did see and reveal that she was in fact female, no penis, there was a vagina. Caused all kinds of fucking, whoa, it's like shockwaves throughout the world because, oh my God, how did we not know for a start? But I think her closest friends apparently did know, friends and family. Secondly, how could a woman have been able to, such a capable surgeon, how to have achieved all of this, Because back in those times, women weren't allowed generally to get fucking proper educations. The first, it was only in 1878 that women were allowed to attain fucking degrees. So, no, James Barry was not a trans man. Margaret James Barry was a wealthy woman who, by luck and grace of being born into an aristocratic family with quite a lot of money and having a wealthy fucking benefactor die and leave, she was the heiress. She inherited a fairly large sum of money, which enabled her to then, what she did, she disappeared off the scope deliberately, and then she created an identity as a male, and then she paid for her education. So basically she used this inheritance to get some independence and to be able to put herself through medical school, which is what she'd always wanted to do, but because she was a woman, there's no chance in hell she would have been able to do it had she not have had this wealth, right? So she's had to use that wealth and then pretend to be a man her entire fucking life just in order to be able to use her intellect and fucking follow the career path that she craved. She was a woman who deliberately fucking dressed as a man her entire life because at the time, women weren't allowed to get degrees in fucking medicine. Women weren't allowed to practice medicine. They weren't allowed to be doctors or surgeons. They would have had no chance in hell of doing that. They were barely allowed. They didn't even get the fucking vote until the 1900s, right? She wasn't a fucking trans man identifying as male. She was doing it out of necessity because otherwise there's no way in hell she would have been able to do what she was able to achieve in her life. And the only way, and the reason for all of that, right, was because she was born biological female, right? It wasn't how she identified. She was born a woman. She had to fucking pretend to be otherwise in order to get a decent tertiary and medical education. That does not make her a fucking trans man, for God's sakes. Jesus. And what, is it any fucking female figure in history that has any kind of power or political fucking sway? Does that automatically make them all fucking men? Like BOUDICCA or BOUDICCA fucking in the UK, was she a trans man? The woman who fucking raised an army and almost fucking defeated the Romans in England? Was she a trans man because she rode the chariot and fucking fought with the sword and shit? No. She was a fucking amazing woman. And 2,000 years later, we still know the name of, right? Don't fucking, just quit erasing women's history, man. Oh, and George Eliot? No, not a trans man. Had to use a male name just to get published because they weren't publishing fucking female authors back in the day. Get it through your noggins. It's biological sex that has oppressed us for fucking millennia, not gender identity. And that ain't going to stop or change just because you put a different name on stuff. End of rant.